Is narcissism in the Bible? There's a lot of people that think it is. There's a lot of people that think it isn't. And so we're going to talk about it a little bit today and give you just a snapshot, my perspective. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel that has been not just diagnosed with NPD, but also is looking to how do I grow and change and develop who I am? How do I transform how I show up? So some of you might watch and be like, he doesn't seem like a narcissist. Well, yeah, because 5 years ago, there's a completely different version of me. My journey has been documenting the transformation that's happened inside of my life, how I show up to my wife, to my kids, to God, to how I'm showing up here today to help you understand narcissism, narcissistic abuse, and provide an opportunity for you to have freedom from the toxic guy that's in your life. If I can help with that, you can go to rawmotivations.com. I'd love to be able to talk to you today. Today, we're going to be diving in just a little bit into narcissism in the Bible. I'm not going to go into a super long, in-depth over the entire piece of the Bible. We're just going to take a snapshot. There's one of my favorite passages that talk through, I think, give a good perspective of narcissism. So you might be listening to me like, oh, great, this is what the conversation is today. Well, hopefully it was in the title, but if not, then yeah, it's the conversation. So stick around or not stick around, but this is what we're going to be talking about because I think it's applicable to a lot of people that what they're struggling with. There's a lot of Christians and a lot of people in the religious culture that are dealing and struggling with narcissism and narcissistic abuse. The problem is a lot of times the religious culture and structure is oftentimes providing more space for more and more narcissists to be born and created simply because they're living oftentimes plastic lives. This is one of the most difficult and frustrating things about seeing different churches, different religions, different Christianity circles that are not actually willing to be transparent and honest. So this perpetuates more lies. It perpetuates shame. It perpetuates some of the very same things that produce narcissism and narcissistic abuse. So you have this perpetuate over a long period of time. It's no wonder that you're going to see more and more narcissists come out of the church structure and the religious sphere simply because a lot of what is preached and focused on is conformity versus connection. How do I know that? Because that's what I grew up in all of my life. Baptist, Southern Baptist, conservative, evangelical, all those different pieces all grew up inside of that. And the majority of what was caught, not just taught, but caught of understanding was you need to look, appear, and act a certain way. But a relationship with God that's a loving, kind Father that wants the best for you, that was different. That was weird. So there's a lot of different pieces there, and we'll soapbox on some stuff today, but come along for the ride, okay? Narcissism in the Bible, the passage that I really resonate with a lot, and when I read this, I was just like, oh my gosh, here it is. I was like, here's definition of narcissism in the Bible, is Jude. And so, if you have your Bibles today, flip over to Jude. This sounds so weird. Jude. And Jude in the Bible, the book in the Bible, Jude, it has this section where it's talking about judgment on false teachers. And it's actually this attack on false teachers, and it's calling false teachers out. And it uses different examples. It compares to angels. There's a couple different things that happen inside of here. But the main piece that I want to go off of is some of what they're describing as the false teachers. So this is going to apply to Christian and religious organizations of having false teachers there. It's also going to apply to you have to be a liar to be a false teacher, right? You have to be a liar to be a cheater. You have to be a liar to do some of these abusive things. And this is really what the crux of a lot of this comes down to is you'll never have a narcissist change until he's willing to be honest. If he's not willing to be honest, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to get different. Nothing's going to be better. So if we flip over into Jude, what we're going to see is a couple different things. It's talking about many different aspects on this judgment of false teachers. Now, it talks into different ways, but as I'm going to start here, let's see, verse 3. It's like, hey, I was eager to write you about the common salvation. I found it necessary to write, appealing to you to contend for the faith that was once delivered to all the saints. Hey, I need to actually fight here a little bit because there's stuff coming into the church, into the area that's going to screw it up, okay? He says, for certain people have crept in unnoticed, who long ago were designated for this condemnation, ungodly people who pervert the grace of our God into sensuality and deny our only Master and Lord Jesus Christ, okay? Now, if you're new here, you're like, what is this guy doing? Where are we going? Just bear with me for a second. Okay, he's just talking about liars, and he's talking about people that are sneaking into the religious organization to be able to corrupt it. To be able to say, hey, if this is the principle you believe, I'm going to come in, I'm going to slowly pervert it. I'm just going to push it to the side. This is what narcissists do to your life all the time. He doesn't come in and say, no, you can't go talk to that person. No, you need to stop your career and come be with me. But he says the subtle things that get you to change your trajectory. Like to get you to slide off the side of the road, to sideline you on a day-to-day basis. That's normal. Because what he's doing is he's planting small seeds to try to make sure you're drifting out of the path that you're actually called to go down, or that you actually want to go down. And so inside of the church here, and the Jude's talking to, he's like, hey, there's these people that are infiltrating. Like they've actually been infiltrating into the church, and they're actually pulling people away because they're making things appear sensual that aren't sensual. They're perverting things that don't need to be perverted. Sounds like a lot of our culture in a lot of ways. Anyways, now I want to remind you all, though, that once you fully knew that Jesus who saved the people out of the land of Egypt afterward destroyed those who did not believe. And then it talks through this piece of angels, and it moves into Sodom and Gomorrah, where it talks about, hey, here's a bunch of people that were practicing a lot of sexual morality, bestiality, a bunch of like crazy stuff. But there it serves an example of like, hey, if you continue going down this road, like you're going to get consumed by it and it's going to destroy you. Okay. All right. Moving on. It says, yet in like manner, these people also relying on dreams, defile their flesh, reject authority, and blaspheme the glorious ones. Okay, so it's people that are not willing to be in this reality. They're like, hey, I'm going to believe something different. I'm going to project on other things, and I'm going to continue to reject other people, reject authority, reject other people in my life, all those aspects. Okay, then we're going to dive down to verse 11. Woe to them, for they walked in the way of Cain and abandoned themselves for the sake to gain Balaam's error and powers and colors of. Okay, we're going to skip that for right now. There we go. Verse 12. They are hidden reefs at your love feasts. Okay, this is where it gets interesting, I think. Okay, think of it like, so reefs. So we're talking about like boating. We're talking about ocean. Okay, a reef can look very beautiful and can be amazing for you to snorkel and be able to go underwater, see a bunch of fish. But for boats, a reef oftentimes is extremely dangerous, especially if it's hidden, because the boat will run aground. Okay, imagine like you have a giant cruise ship and it doesn't see a reef. One is going to wreak havoc. It could break apart the ship. It could destroy the ship. But also, like, think for a moment, if you're on a cruise ship and it goes and it's going quickly and it gets stuck on a reef, like, how long are you going to be stuck there till another boat gets there to, like, tow you off? Like, it just sounds wild. But anyways, like, hidden reef, something that's actually destructive, but then it says at your love feast. So, like, when you think that you're connected, that you're loving, that everything's going together, hey, by the way, this guy that's in your life, he's a hidden reef. He's getting ready to actually destroy you. You just don't see it yet. You can't see it because it looks great. The waves are awesome. The water's fine. Come on in. But then as you keep getting closer, you start to run aground simply because this person has a hidden agenda, has a hidden reef underneath. So this is where I'm talking about narcissism in the Bible. As they feast with you without fear. This is one of the fascinating pieces. Feasting with you without fear. He's eating with you, not worried about you catching him, not worried about you holding him accountable, not worrying about anything, because he doesn't fear you, because he doesn't respect you, because he doesn't care about you. Sound familiar? We've talked about this in different contexts. Shepherds feeding themselves instead of like feeding other people, helping other people. So shepherds is talking about not just like sheep, but it's also talking about like feeding the flock. Okay, we see this a lot of times in the biblical reference of like the pastor helping others. So like it's talking about false teachers. So it's like, I'm taking care of myself, but you, yeah, you fend for yourself. See if you can last without the wolves. So like you need to be able to see like he's only focused on himself. He's only focused on what he wants in the moment. Everything else doesn't matter. Okay. Waterless clouds swept along by winds. Super cool. Waterless clouds. Looking and seeing and hoping that cloud is going to have water to be able to produce water for your crops, for them to be able to flourish. But it said they're waterless. And so it's almost like this idea of like future faking of like, hey, there's a cloud. Just kidding. No rain here. But you were hoping for a little bit. Swept along by the wind. It's just going along. It's just going wherever he wants. To give you the perception that he's growing, changing, developing, to give you the perception that he's getting better, to give you the perception that he's giving you all these promises wherever you want. Like, oh, I wish you would have said this. Oh, yeah, I said this. Oh, I wish you would have said that. Oh, yeah, I said this. Going wherever to future fake you into believing a reality that's not actually real. fruitless trees in late autumn, twice dead, uprooted. Like they're like hiding in like the trees. They're like hiding in with all the trees in the orchard, and you're like, that one's dead. Why is it still here? Well, it's still here because it hasn't been dealt with. It hasn't actually been taken up. It hasn't actually been like focused on or moved away. It's still here because there's still an issue, but it hasn't been taken care of. Sounds like the narcissist in your life in a lot of ways. We talk about wild waves of the sea, casting up the foam of their own shame. That to me is probably one of the most amazing verses that even talks about shame in the Bible. But like casting up their foam of their own shame. Like you see like the waves and it makes like this foam. It makes this white water that washes up and it's just like shame covers everything. The foam covers everything for a brief moment and then it disappears. Like narcissists have all this shame inside of them that they're casting their shame on everything, being like, I feel shame, abuse. I feel shame, blame. I feel shame, project. I feel shame, do anything I need to do to get away from you and the problem that's going on in my life in that moment. So narcissist feels the shame and there's a reaction, there's a response that's abusive. Wandering stars from whom the gloom of utter darkness has been reserved forever. Wandering stars. This oftentimes is interesting going back to like in olden days, like being able to navigate where the stars are. And you're like, wait a second, that's my North Star. That's where I'm supposed to go. And then you're like, wait a second, it moved. Now it's over here. Now it's over here. Okay? Narcissists mislead you and misguide you all the time. Like that's the focus of like, how do I keep you moving and going different ways so you don't actually get clear, so you don't actually deal with the facts. Let's see. There's a couple other things. We'll just jump down here. These are grumblers, malcontents, following their own sinful desires. They're loud-mouthed boasters, showing favoritism to gain advantage. It's a ton more things just packed in here. I'm not going to be able to break it all down. What I need you to see is narcissism is not this new thing. It's not this newfangled thing that people are like, oh, now we have narcissism. No, we finally found a label for the problem that was already there already. An entitled, selfish asshole that is not willing to be honest and as a result continues to lie, manipulate, cheat, steal, and abuse other people. That's been around since the beginning of time. So when we start to think that we're dealing with something new, we're not. There's nothing new under the sun. There might be different labels or way to be able to work through it and process it, but we're still dealing with the same old things. Now, that doesn't mean it's easy just to slap a I love Jesus sticker on it and make it all better. Because we also have to go through some of the trauma. We have to go through some of the stories. We have to go through some of the lies. Because if we don't eradicate the lies, there's not an opportunity for honesty to actually open up to let God actually work. If God can't work, then oftentimes you're going to see the same spiral out over and over and over again. Let me know what you think. This week was a little bit interesting because we had a little bit more context about narcissism in the Bible, different aspects like that. We've got one more that's coming, so it'd be interesting. I'm really actually interested to see this YouTube week if views are going to be down or views are going to be up, because it might be just controversial and people are like, I hate this guy or I'm leaving, or it could be like, hey, let's hear more. I don't know. But that's who I am, where I am, what's going on. I don't fall into the religious box of conformity, but I believe that everybody should have a personal connection with God. That's where I am. That's where I'm going. And stick around for more. Y'all have a blessed, wonderful day.